Jayapal recently has been making the rounds doing some interviews. We can take a listen to this one in particular on Mehdi Hasan's show. But surprisingly, she's kind of united the left against all odds against her. You know, people around the leftist spectrum are calling out Pramila Jayapal as Build Back Better has essentially died now at the hands of Joe Manchin, who even after remaking this bill to his own liking, stripping everything he didn't want from it, influeing the direction it was going, basically masterminding the whole bill. Even after all that is said and done, he's still like, nah, I don't think I'm actually going to end up voting for this thing. I'm actually not going to, give you guys a W. I'm going to hold out, even though you already gutted it specifically for me. So total insanity. But a lot of people have been pointing to the Progressive Caucus and how miserable and ineffectual their strategy has been this entire way, all along the way.
Those people being the vanguard.
Yeah, those people being the vanguard and others. But now it's really just hard to deny because, the progressives have been had. They've been fooled. They've been sold up a river. And let's take a look at Jayapal's response here. Let me pull this up and we can hear Mehdi Hasan, who, does a pretty decent job, all things considered, over at his show on Peacock, questioning folks like Jayapal, holding them to account. So let's take a look here. I thought this was pretty fascinating. And then we'll get into some of the reactions because, like I said, people across the spectrum on the left are calling out Jayapal, turning on Jayapal, demanding that she resign from her chair or resign from her position as chair of the CPC, as it says here in this tweet. So, yeah, without further ado, let's take a look. This is pretty insane.
How do you feel about that today? Do you feel that Joe Biden let you down? And do you feel you got played by Joe Manchin?
No and no. We are, for the weeks and the days going up to the vote in the House, everybody, every day, if I had counted, if I got a penny for every time somebody said to me, this is not going to happen. You all have given up everything. We got it done in the House. Now, I am in the same place in saying that we are getting grenades rolled at us all the time. We have to pick them up. We have to put the pin back in, and we have to continue to focus on the fact that this is going to be rocky. We can't hang our commitments and our hopes on the words of one senator or two senators. We have to continue to work to get it done, and the vast majority of it is done. And so I was on the phone with Senator Schumer today, with the White House, and I believe we will still get it done. It's going to be rocky, and we just have to continue to leave no space in the commitment to getting it done. And listen, the president's word is on the line here, and I do still believe that he is going to do what he told me and what he told our caucus and what he told the country he would do. Had we not done what we had done, though,
and if he doesn't, Congresswoman,
what was that?
And if he doesn't?
No, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. It will hurt everybody.
Just to be clear, you're going to pass Build Back Better by December the 31st.
We are going to pass Build Back Better. I hope it is by December 31st. I think it will be. But we are going to get it done, and we are going to get it done very, very quickly. Almost everything is done, thanks to the Progressive Caucus holding the line.
There's no evidence that Joe Manchin is going to vote for it. We just have reporting today that says that he spoke to Joe Biden on the phone, and they are far apart. Where is your optimism coming from? Because a lot of people are looking and saying, Joe Manchin played all of you.
Well, I think, if you want to give him that credit now, you certainly can, but I don't know why you would. It hasn't been done. It's not finished, and we're going to get it done. And I think that people react to reporting. There's reporting all the time. And we know that Senator Manchin has not been the number one supporter of the Build Back Better Act, but he made a commitment to the president. The president made a commitment to us, and I believe we're going to get it done. So I think that there's, it's hard because we get this reporting all the time. Things go up and down in a negotiation. I feel like I'm in deja vu because I had to say this over and over again when people told us that we weren't going to get it through the House, and we got it through the House, and we got it through the House with every single, all except one Democrat voting for it, which, let me tell you, Mehdi, would not have happened had we not crafted the deal that we crafted, had the Progressive Caucus not been as strong as we were. So give us.
I don't think anyone's questioning. I don't think anyone's questioning your achievements in the House. We're talking about the Senate, where you don't, you don't control Joe Manchin. That's the problem. Joe Biden doesn't control Joe Manchin, and the leverage that you had, your critics would argue, was lost when you voted for Biff. I just wonder, do you regret?
Also, just to quickly butt in on Pramila Jayapal, we'll finish this whatever last second I think that's on this, but before we do, holy shit, could you imagine being so like in the pocket of the establishment and like she is completely gone. She is completely gone. This is what we call simping for the man in the grandest possible way. She's going to be telling us all the way up until the midterms that, we Build Back Better is just over the horizon. Once we get over the midterms, then we'll really have the support we need, just how we had a stronger, majority in the House. And that's how we were able to get Build Back Better passed it in the House. That's what we need to do with the Senate. And it's like, wait, you already have the majority in the Senate. You're not going to have it after the midterms. But anyway, other thing, shout out to Mehdi Hasan for not letting her fucking wriggle out of this at all. Fucking based.
Yeah, 100%. Mehdi Hasan's doing an amazing job here, by the way. Complete credit to him where it's due. And yeah, I'd almost feel more like comfortable with this answer. I'd almost feel better about Jayapal's answer if she was just being honest about the situation and being like, yeah, this isn't going how we hoped it would. We're trying our hardest, but this is bullshit, and we're up against a lot, guys. And we're trying our hardest to get some help for the American people. This is not what we hoped would happen. I admit that this has not been a perfect performance strategy wise thus far. I would almost feel a little bit better if she was just a little bit honest. But as it is, she's just fucking bullshitting us. Like, we know what's going on. We know this bill isn't going to get passed, and even if it does, it's going to be even more emasculated, even more stripped down of anything decent. It's just going to be a massive handout to the corporations and to the privatizing forces. So why are you fucking lying to us, Pramila Jayapal? I thought you were like with us. I thought you were part of the left in Congress. Apparently not. You sound like you sound like Jen Psaki right now. You sound like the fucking press secretary for Joe Biden, defending this bill, defending the lack of an ability of the Progressive Caucus to get anything done, completely giving away the farm to Joe Manchin just to allow him to play you anyway. This is totally insane, and yeah, it's absolutely gaslighting. It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, and not only that, she's doing it a second time. She's still acting like this. This was the same day, I believe, if not the day after. He went on Fox fucking News to take a huge shit in Joe Biden's cornflakes right in the morning and say, hey man, I am going into the lion's den for the Democratic Party. I'm looking at all of them and I'm saying, praise me while I take a shit on the leadership in this party. And I'm going to show them what a cucked piece of shit you are. You won't do a goddamn thing. You're going to call me on the phone, tell me I'm a good friend, tell me that I am, upholding these, balanced budget values or whatever kind of horseshit they're going to peddle to make, how Nancy Pelosi always loves to come out and say, we need a strong Republican Party. They're going to be like, we need a strong middle line in the Democratic Party and all this kind of shit. And that's exactly what Pramila Jayapal is doing. So am I supposed to assume that Pramila Jayapal is now a Joe Biden Democrat, an Biden-Obama Democrat? You know what I mean? It's fucking obvious that that's what she's become. And when you have a guy like Mehdi Hasan, who obviously we've voiced our opinions, and disagreements on in the past, credit where credit's due. He holds her to the fucking flames on this shit. He's also we didn't get a chance to cover it. He's like the only host on MSNBC at all that said anything about Julian Assange and how it's completely crazy. I think he's one of the only mainstream voices, period, on Peacock, CNBC, CNN, any of them, to passionately be like, hey, I don't care what you think about Julian Assange. This is serious. So shout out to him. For that as well. But yeah, I mean, look, we've been saying this for a while, ever since Pramila Jayapal didn't want to endorse whole Washington. She's been playing the establishment game, and I think
she endorsed Joe Kennedy over Ed Markey.
Yeah, what a fucking strike against you there. I mean, it's kind of like those revelations, right? When you see who somebody's real priorities are. It's kind of like when Elizabeth Warren endorsed John Frackenlooper in the Colorado race. You know what I mean? That shit is on your record forever. And it's like, oh, you're not serious about climate change. Sorry, I understand that now. Anyway, Pramila Jayapal is not serious. She should not be the leader of the Progressive Caucus. And honestly, the fact that she is should have been the first red flag to you that she's not serious, because they would never want a serious progressive leading the Progressive Caucus. Otherwise, they just want us gumming at them with no teeth.
But yeah, let's watch the rest of this. There's like a minute more of embarrassment, of cringe. So let's take a look.
voting for the Biff deal now in hindsight, given it's now leverage that you house. We're talking about the Senate where you don't control Joe Manchin. That's the problem. Joe Biden doesn't control Joe Manchin. And the leverage that you had, your critics would argue, was lost when you voted for Biff. I just wonder, do you regret voting for the Biff deal now in hindsight, given it's now months later and Joe Manchin is nowhere closer to signing off on 1.75 trillion?
No, I don't regret it because I think our leverage was at the maximum point. And had we not done that, I think we would have actually lost even more on Build Back Better. I think we would have lost votes on it. I think it would have made it very difficult to ever pass it. So I think what you have to do in these moments is you have to try and go for maximum leverage. And I think that's exactly what the Progressive Caucus did. And I believe that we're going to get it passed. Now, is it going to be every single day Joe Manchin saying something else that somebody hangs their hat on and says, this means you're not going to get it done? Unfortunately, yes, that's who the Senator Manchin is. I mean, he has never made a secret of the fact that he doesn't, I think he is not the person who crafted this bill. It's not his number one priority, but he made a commitment to the president. And I believe we have to get it done, and we will get it done.
He will change his mind, you say. I hope we can get you back on the show when he does and when that bill passes. It's a huge bill. I've made my views very clear about what an important bill it is on this.
Yeah, so this is pretty fucking crazy. And again, it maddens me how these Democrats, these supposed lefty Democrats, even they refuse to just acknowledge Joe Manchin's corruption. Like, why are you pretending as if his objection to this legislation or any progressive legislation is like on principle, as if like, oh, well, he's a hard man to please and he's just looking out for his constituents in West Virginia. But like, no, just be honest about his priorities and where they come from and what incentives he serves. It's so obvious. The dude's a literal like coal baron in West Virginia. The dude has all of these conflicts of interest. It's the easiest target ever to point out and embarrass him and call him an enemy of the people and say that he single-handedly is obstructing this legislation because of his conflicts of interest and ties to industry. It's so obvious and easy to do that. But even the likes of Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna, the Congress people that are supposed to be lefties, they refuse to do that. They keep apologizing for him and defending him and acting like this is just some like cordial difference in political outlook or viewpoint. It's absolute insanity. And it blows my mind that, the left flank in Congress right now, and that includes the Squad and AOC and all of them and Bernie Sanders himself, they refuse to see their political enemies in an actual antagonistic light. Like they refuse to actually approach them as if they are antagonists, as if they are obstructionists, which they are. And if you actually cared about these policies and these were actually your priorities, then you would be fighting a little bit goddamn harder against your antagonists, against the people that are obstructing these policies from passing.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the MO, right? That's the rotating villain kind of game style that they don't want to actually make a big show of it. They don't want to disrupt the feathers. They'll just say, oh, it's this person and we politically disagree with them and shame on them and whatever. But they're not going to actually go in there and talk about how like the most you're going to get is what's happening right now, where AOC is tweeting about how Biden has lots of tools at his disposal and we need to be using all of them. And I was like, okay, that doesn't have any teeth to it. You're not actually making anybody's life harder. You're not keeping them going home from going home on Christmas. You're not fucking going on, MSNBC on Mehdi Hasan's show, which I'm sure he'd be happy to host somebody like AOC or Ilhan Omar to talk about how unconscionable it is that Joe Biden's not going to West Virginia and campaigning for the Build Back Better bill, that he's letting himself be pushed around by one fucking senator, which is holding up a presidency defining piece of legislation for him. And look, I'm not even that big of a fan of the Build Back Better legislation. It was completely gutted. It's like a fool's bill at this point. It's just as good as for the corporations, probably better for the corporation, way better for the corporations than it is for any of the people that it's actually, going to provide any kind of pittance of assistance to. But I'm just saying, if that's like, if they were actually doing real political calculation, if they were actually interested in winning. But even David Sirota, not exactly a political pessimist, was out here talking about how the Democrats are trying to lose. He literally wrote a piece that they published in the Daily Poster called "The Democrats Are Trying to Lose." And I feel like if we're all there now, because it's so fucking obvious that you don't have to be somebody that is like a doomer or a fucking nihilist to be like, the Democrats aren't trying. You just have to be looking at the fucking objective reality and understand that you cannot take somebody that's talking to you like Pramila Jayapal with just talking to Mehdi Hasan and, the rest of America, by extension. You can't listen to somebody that's talking like that and take them seriously and feel like they actually have your interest at heart. They're not fighting. It's so fucking obvious. They're just, as you said, Gavin, gaslighting.
Yeah, and straight up defending Biden and Manchin. Like, again, Jayapal sounded like a goddamn press secretary there, not the left flank of the Democratic Party, the party in power that controls the Congress and the Senate. That was no left flank voice. That was a press secretary running defense for Joe Biden's inability to whip votes and Joe Manchin's absolute corruption, which prevents him from doing the right thing. And yeah, at this point, the bill is barely worth passing. But at one point, it was worth passing. They let Joe Manchin systematically destroy the bill before then turning around and pissing all over them anyway. So it's totally insane what has happened here. And as I said, Jayapal's excuses at this point are wearing so thin that lefties across the spectrum are calling this out. Usually we have a pretty solid faction of defenders of the squad, defenders of the progressive caucus. They're gonna give these people credit almost no matter what. They can basically do no wrong. But even some of these folks are, turning on Jayapal now. This tweet here, of course, describes this interview, says or gives this quote: "Had we not passed the infrastructure bill, that would have been the day the senator said BBB is done. We still would have ended up in the same place." And she says she doesn't regret coupling the bill from Build Back Better, which of course was the sacrifice of their leverage. Brianna Joy Gray quote tweeted, says, cool. But what I thought was really interesting was that even some of the, other lefties like David Dole, the boutique left, as some people like to say,
the neo-progs.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting in on this too. And, straight up in no uncertain terms, calling Jayapal out as a clown. Again, David Dole here, one of the more milquetoast lefties on YouTube, says, LOL, she needs to step out of that leadership position. He rarely criticizes the squad. He'll go out of his way to not have to criticize the squad. So, this is meaningful. She fucked up that bad. Here's Cenk Uygur, says, this is literally insane. How could a strategy that completely failed be exactly the right strategy unless she wanted it to fail? Rep Jayapal, did you want the bill to fail, or was your strategy wrong? And he's 100% right there. Absolutely 100% correct. Humanist Report, she writes excellent legislation, but she should really not be the leader of the CPC. And I think that's fair. Yeah, she wrote Medicare for All. Clearly, she has experience as a legislator, but as the leader of the left flank, absolutely the fuck not. She has proven she has no place being in that position. And one more from Anna Kasparian. Imagine the audacity to tweet this after giving all your leverage away, after helping Dems pass their corporate handout infrastructure bill. Looking forward to all the tolls that come along with Congress agreeing to privatize more public infrastructure. And 100%, she's absolutely right there as well. So yeah, it's pretty funny that all these people that traditionally, usually, defend the squad more or less, even this is too far. They're like, this is too much. I'm fed up. This is absolute insanity. Tired of being gaslit, etc.